Asian shares are mostly higher on Friday as heavy buying in tech stocks pushes Wall Street benchmarks to fresh records. Hong Kong's Hang Seng falls nearly 1%, while most other Asian markets trade in the green. On currencies, the US dollar is flat versus the Hong Kong dollar and the Thai baht, but rises against other Asian currencies. The Australian dollar, meanwhile, weakens against the greenback. On commodities, gold edges up 0.2%, while oil prices trade mixed. In crypto, Bitcoin drops 0.7%, and Ethereum loses 0.2%. The House of Representatives wraps up plenary deliberations on the proposed 6.8 trillion peso General Appropriations Bill for 2026. The budget is hailed as the best and cleanest, focusing on programs that directly improve the lives of Filipinos. Committee on Appropriations Chair Micaela Swansing assures the public the 2026 budget remains people-centered, transparent, and accountable. The House Minority Leader is set to deliver the traditional turno en contra on the proposed budget this Monday. Swansing stresses the budget priorities will address urgent needs, highlighting investments in education, agriculture, health, job creation, and livelihood programs. Senator Panfilo Lacson backs a proposal to cancel or reprice upcoming projects of the Public Works Department worth 1.6 trillion pesos. That proposal, made by Batangas 1st District Representative Leandro Leviste, could lead to savings of 400 billion pesos. Leviste has urged DPWH Secretary Vince Dizon to cancel 1 trillion pesos worth of ongoing projects for 2025 and 600 billion worth of planned projects for 2026. In a statement, Lacson said the savings can be used to fund priority health and education programs and also ease the country's debt burden. Construction firms owned by Pacifico Discaya and his wife Sara could face fines by as much as 300 billion pesos. They are accused of bid rigging of over 1,000 flood control contracts with the Public Works Department. Secretary Vince Dizon said the couple's firms cornered 1,214 flood control contracts from 2016 to 2025, worth more than 77 billion pesos. Dizon said the maximum penalty is 250 million pesos per contract. Also on Friday, the Public Works Department is referring two cases of alleged bid rigging to the Philippine Competition Commission. The first case covers contractors Wawaw Builders, IM Construction, Sims Construction Trading, St. Timothy Construction, and officials from the DPWH Bulacan 1st District. Evidence from congressional hearings as well as investigations by the DPWH and Commission on Audit indicate procurement irregularities. The second case involves SunWest Incorporated and regional officials in Mindoro who pushed through with projects despite red flags. Preliminary evidence include admissions from Curly Discaya and Undersecretary Roberto Bernardo before the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee. The Public Works Department and the Professional Regulation Commission have signed a memorandum of understanding to formalize their coordination in investigating professionals involved in the flood control scandal. 20 names of DPWH engineers, architects, and an accountant have been submitted to the PRC. Secretary Vince Dizon wants their licenses revoked as they face corruption cases before the Ombudsman. The list includes former Bulacan DPWH engineers Henry Alcantara, Bryce Hernandez, and JP Mendoza.
Once ma-revoke po ang kanilang mga lisensya, ibig sabihin, pag sila ay nag-practice despite the revocation of their license at tinuloy nila ang pag-practice na pagiging engineero nila or accountants or architects, illegal practice na po yun.
The Independent Commission for Infrastructure has invited former Public Works Secretary and now Senator Mark Villar to attend its hearing on the flood control anomalies. ICI Chair Andres Reyes requested Villar to appear before the panel in Taguig City Tuesday next week. Villar will be asked to shed light on the planning, budgeting, execution, supervision, and monitoring of flood control and other infrastructure projects during his stint at the DPWH. The senator had said he welcomes any investigation, adding that he has nothing to hide. The flood control scandal remains very much top of mind, and now former presidential spokesperson Edwin Lacerda is urging the ICI to make its hearings public. He warns that without transparency, there can be no genuine accountability, saying relying solely on official statements falls short of what the public deserves. On BNC's At the Forefront, he stressed that public trust depends on openly witnessing the process.
Ang balita ko, may isa lang miyembro doon na ayaw i-live yung yung kayong dalawa, sabi niyo transparency is the call of the time. So, bakit ayaw ano bang masama na i-live mo yung hearing na? Marami tayong natututunan sa Senate and House hearing. Bagamat nga sabi nila bias yung mga hearings yan, but at least something comes out.
The call reinforces pressure for open scrutiny in big-ticket projects where billions are at stake and public confidence, including investor trust, hinges on transparency. Motorcycle taxi firms are making strides in passenger and rider safety as the push continues for full legalization of motorcycle taxis. Paulo Barcelon has more.
One of the country's leading motorcycle taxi firms are stepping up in terms of innovations in passenger and rider safety. Movit says it will roll out a special audio protect feature that records the conversation between a rider and a passenger. This can be used in times of complaints and accidents. Movit General Manager Wayne Jacinto says this feature will roll out by Q4 2025 and that more features such as trip tracking will be strengthened for a better riding experience.
Motorcycle taxi companies like Movit are always doubling down on safety, and training is essential. Just like what's going on behind me, these are some applicants who want to become Movit riders, and their skills are being tested to check how well they know the roads that they're about to fly on.
Lahat ng riders namin, aside from dito, sa first step nila ng pagpasok, nire-retrain namin sila. So, maaaring sabihin na lahat sila, sa loob na isang taon, nag-undergo ng retraining.
It is these safety protocols that motorcycle taxi companies such as Movit are banking on to push for the full legalization of motorcycle taxi operations nationwide. The DOTR earlier says it will issue a department order to allow more motorcycle taxis to ply the roads, while waiting on Congress to pass a law allowing MC taxis to be added to the public transport mix.
Sa legalization pa lang, yung ating mga operators, hindi tayo ma-inundate hindi tayo mapupuno ng mga problema sa mga operators na scrupulous na tinatawag or yung mga nananamantala.
Kasi nga, yung gusto namin na maligal na, sila mismo nagpapatagal. From 17 Congress, 18 Congress, 19 Congress, ngayon 20th na.
Movit says they have around over 14,000 riders in Metro Manila and 3,000 each in Cebu and Cagayan de Oro, designated as areas for the pilot study of motorcycle taxis. Jacinto says many riders usually leave them around the holiday season and that demand for constant replenishment of available riders is high, signaling opportunities for added jobs in the gig economy.
Hindi lang naman sa Metro Manila nangangailangan ng MC taxi. Yung mga karatig o kalapit na mga lugar, halimbawa, Pampanga, Bulacan, Batangas, Quezon, lahat yan nangangailangan. Ngayon, hindi natin siya mapapalaki hanggat wala yung batas.
Movit says 2026 is looking to be a better year for the MC taxi industry as more consumers are availing of added transport options to ease travel woes. Paulo Barcelon, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
The death toll from the magnitude 6.9 earthquake in Cebu has been revised to 68 after validation by disaster officials. This is lower than the 72 previously reported. The NDRRMC says the adjustment comes from stricter documentation. However, Cebu's Provincial Disaster Council still lists 73 deaths. So far, more than 366,000 people have been affected, with nearly 1,800 still in evacuation centers. At least 559 have been listed as injured. Authorities now shift their focus to relief and rehabilitation efforts as search and retrieval operations concluded yesterday. PVOC says Tuesday's quake is the most powerful ever recorded in the province. We're taking a short break. More stories are coming up next. You're watching Business Brief. You're back on Business Brief. Farm Fresh Milk Incorporated of Bilyonaryo Frank Lau inaugurates its first pasteurized milk processing plant in San Simon, Pampanga. President Bongbong Marcos led the ceremony, calling the investment a milestone for the local dairy industry and a boost to the agriculture sector. The investment is expected to generate jobs for the local community. Frederick Go, Special Assistant to the President for Economic Affairs, welcomes the project, saying it can boost the country's milk supply. The chairman of DigiPlus Interactive Corporation has sold nearly 2 million shares of the company in a week-long transaction. In its disclosure, the company says between June 17 and 27, Eusebio Tanco disposed of 1.99 million plus shares through his broker. But Tanco still owns 10.43 million shares directly and 647.5 million shares indirectly. Manufacturing lost steam in September, but the Philippine Economic Zone Authority says it's far from a crisis. Director General Tereso Panga blames short-term factors from weak domestic demand to supply chain disruptions and higher input costs. Foreign demand is holding up, but lower local orders are dragging on performance. The PEZA says the solution is stronger ecozone resilience through stable policies and better cost management. And despite the dip, investments approved by the agency are up more than 33% this year. The Philippine Exporters Confederation warns that Philippine exports could lose up to $2 billion this semester due to the new 19% U.S. tariffs, which took effect in August. On BNC's Business 360, PhilExport President Sergio Ortiz-Luis says the impact is hitting hard on labor-intensive sectors like garments and furniture. Even electronics, which make up over half of exports, could be at risk if competitors get better U.S. treatment. He notes the country lacks the budget to support exporters, pointing out that the DTI only receives 0.7% of the national budget. Amid the flood control corruption scandal, he is urging policymakers to double the agency's funding and treat export growth as an investment and not an expense.
In the past, whenever we try to lobby for our budget for two things, for export, for SMEs, questions they will ask us is, where will we get it? It's all allocated for. Now we know where to get it.
Ngayon, alam nyo na kung saan kukunin yung pondo.
If we only can get 5% of what is lost in the flood water, that would help a lot of development of export.
Philippine electronics exports are on track to hit $110 billion within 5 years, a major boost for the country's biggest export earner. Dan La Chica president of the Semiconductor and Electronics Industries in the Philippines Foundation, or SAPI, says growth will be driven by new and emerging technologies. But he warns that risks remain, from global uncertainty to geopolitical pressures such as U.S. tariffs. Electronics make up more than half of the country's exports, making the sector crucial to jobs, dollar inflows, and peso stability. Oil prices are expected to be mixed this week. Jetty Petroleum President Leo Belya says gasoline prices may go up or down by 10 centavos per liter, while diesel is projected to rise by 80 centavos to 1 peso per liter. Bellas explains that crude oil prices have declined sharply this week due to concerns about a market glut from higher OPEC Plus production. He adds the weak Philippine peso could push fuel prices higher across the board. U.S. President Donald Trump warns federal workers could be fired if the deadlock continues, and government will also not be spared. The federal government partially shut down Wednesday after Congress failed to agree on a funding deal. Only essential services remain open. Meanwhile, Trump claims new tariff revenues have started to kick in and could eventually reach $1 trillion a year. But Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says the number is closer to $500 billion. Trump also says part of the funds would go to paying government debt, which he warns could soon climb to $38 trillion.
Well, there could be firings, and that's their fault. And it could also be other things. I mean, we could cut projects that they wanted, favorite projects, and they'd be permanently cut. So you could say, a lot of people are saying Trump wanted this, that I wanted this closing, and I didn't want it. But a lot of people are saying it because I'm allowed to cut things that should have never been approved in the first place. And I will probably do that.
Still on the shutdown, Democrats say they are open to talks to reopen the U.S. government. But House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries stressed they need to negotiate with someone credible. The standoff in Congress has frozen about $1.7 trillion in funds for government operations. Pay has been halted for roughly 2 million federal workers, with about 750,000 ordered not to report to work. The shutdown has also suspended scientific research, financial oversight, and a wide range of other services.
Unfortunately, Republicans have shown zero interest in even having a conversation. After the White House meeting on Monday, we've seen behavior by the president that is unserious and unhinged. And Leader Schumer and myself haven't gotten a single phone call as it relates to a follow-up conversation. We're ready to have that conversation, but we need credible partners on the other side of the aisle. And Donald Trump and Republicans have made clear they wanted to shut down the government.
A prolonged shutdown doesn't just hurt the U.S. economy, it risks dollar volatility, heightened uncertainty in global markets, and capital outflows from emerging economies like the Philippines. Philippine shares rise for the third straight day. The PSEI gains over 1% to close at 61.08, making it the fourth best performer in Asia. Majority of the day's most active stocks are in the green, with services leading the gains at nearly 4%. Advancers outnumber decliners 111 to 79, with value turnover reaching 4.6 billion pesos. Week on week, the PSEI also rises more than 1%. Majority of the day's most active stocks and higher, with ICTSI rising the most at more than 5%. On currencies, the peso trades at 58.01 against the US dollar, up from the previous close of 58.08. That's a wrap for today's Business Brief. I'm Mai Rodriguez. Join us again next week as we bring you the stories that help you plan your next big, bold moves in business, only here on the Bilyonaryo News Channel. I'll see you then.